Hey, welcome to the Harryman Show number 27, where we have Bart Robley. Bart is an excellent live player. He's a live educator. He's written many books. Great guy. Gretchen Dorser. How you doing, Bart?
I am doing fantastic, Dustin. How the heck are you, buddy?
I'm just happy to have you on the show, man.
Oh, dude, I'm happy to be here. How are things in Arizona today?
It's endless summer, I'll tell you that. It just doesn't stop.
Dude, I don't know how you do it. My sister lives in Mesa, and we play out there a lot. We play in Arizona a lot, and man, it's like playing on the sun. And I always tell my sister, I'm like, how do you? We grew up in Colorado. How in the heck did you end up out here? She loves it. She loves it. They got a great house out there. So
yeah, but it pays off for the other 9 months, I guess. I mean, that's when you'll see more light music out here, but. Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
You can't even grab your cymbal stands in the middle of the day. So,
dude, you know what? That is no joke. You know what? That is no joke. I had we were loading into a gig, and it wasn't a cymbal stand, but I left something. Was sitting on the end of the trailer, piece of chrome hardware or something. I don't even remember. Oh, you know what it was? It was a conga stand. Mm-hmm. And I walked out and I went to grab the conga stand. It was like on fire. I was like, holy crap!
Yeah, it sucks.
Right, the little things you don't think about.
Yeah, but the rest of the year it's great, and that's when I think the live music flourishes a little bit in the off or our on season. Most people's off season, but.
Right.
So, Bart, tell us about what got you into drums in the first place.
Well, I'm really, really going to age myself here and date myself. When I was a kid growing up, my mom always had Elvis playing. She had Elvis playing all the time. She was, such an Elvis fan. She was one of those people, you see the old black and white footage of, somebody watching Elvis and it's a girl just freaking out. That was my mom. she loved Elvis. So she always had Elvis playing in the house, and it was such an early memory, and it was only Elvis. It's so much so that when my dad came home one day and he had two records with him that weren't Elvis. He had a Jim Croce's Greatest Hits, and he had a Tom Jones record, and he put these records on, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, God, Elvis sounds really weird, and then I realized, other people can play music. Music was something that wasn't just Elvis, or the lady in the back of the church playing the out-of-tune piano. It was, it was a thing, and so. My mom got tickets to go to an Elvis concert, and it was the first concert I ever went to. It was in 1972. Once again, I'm dating myself here. I was about 5 years old, and the way the concert went was there was a comedian that came out and opened up the show, and then his backup singers, they were called. He had a huge band in the 70s. He had the Jordanaires, and then he had the Sweet Inspirations. They were his female backup singers, and they opened up the show, and they played the like Motown hits and stuff like that of that era. And I remember the show being so incredibly loud. I put my hands over my ears, and slowly took them away, and okay, wow, this is really cool. And then shortly after they were done with their show, Elvis came out, and it was like a bomb went off. It was the most electrifying thing at a young age of 5 years old I'd ever experienced. And I was just blown away by it. And I didn't remember the concert as much as I remembered that. I just remembered the electricity of it, the magnitude of it. And so, a few months later, there was a really famous concert called Elvis Aloha from Hawaii, and it was simulcast around the world via satellite, and right, and it was live on TV, and there was a camera set up right beside Ronnie Tutt's drums, off to his left side, kind of behind the drums, and facing out. You could see out into the crowd, and you could see Elvis from behind. And I was just mesmerized. He was playing this big blue sparkle set of Ludwig drums, and he had long hair and a beard. And I remember watching his hi-hat, and I didn't know, it was moving, it was going up and down. And I remember thinking to myself, is that automatic, or was that, is he doing that?
Uh-huh.
And I was just blown away by it. And so after watching that, I just bugged my mom. And finally, she got me a practice pad and a pair of sticks. And by a couple of years had passed, and I got a practice pad and a pair of sticks. And she got me a lesson with this guy that she worked with. His name was Pete Capielli, and he taught me how to play a 5-stroke roll and a paradiddle. And so that went on for a long time, and the rest, as they say, is history. I got involved with school band and everything like that. But really, Elvis and watching Ronnie Tutt, who was once again Elvis's drummer in the '70s, play, and who incidentally, when Elvis passed away, he went on to play for Neil Diamond.
Oh, really?
He played for Neil Diamond up until Neil Diamond retired last year, or the year before last, because I think he has Parkinson's or something terrible like that.
Oh, that sucks.
And so he retired. And Ronnie Tutt was one of those guys, much like any of our heroes. I mean, I'm a big Bonham fan and stuff, and a big Alex Van Halen fan. And when you hear those guys, you instantly know who they are, and that's kind of what Ronnie's like. When you hear Ronnie Tutt play, you just know it's him. It's just his touch on the drums, and so always loved his playing. But yeah, that's how I got started. That was my start to music.
Yeah, and then Ronnie had that railroad beat kind of down, right? He kind of commercialized that railroad beat pretty well back then as well.
Yeah, well, in the '70s, it was more. Well, the guy that did the railroad beat or the train beat was actually in the '50s. Elvis's drummer, when Elvis first came out, was DJ Fontana, and he did that. But that was definitely something from that era that a lot of those guys played. That was DJ Fontana, and incidentally, DJ, he was a Gretsch guy, and I'm a Gretsch guy, so that was one of my things where I love Gretsch drums because DJ Fontana played Gretsch. But yeah. Ronnie Tutt is one of those guys that, man, he can play anything. He can play a train beat. He can play jazz. He can play rock. He can just play anything. And he was a double bass guy too. So you listen to a lot of that stuff from the '70s with Elvis, and yeah, he had 2 bass drums and always had some cool stuff happening there. So yeah, but yeah, Ronnie was the man. That's for sure. He was the first one that got me started.
Yeah, and then as far as your teaching goes, did you? I know you said you were in school, but did you still run with the rudiments? Did you kind of rebel against it like most kids? Like most kids at that age?
You know what? The rudiments to me were something that I had a really good drum teacher by the name of Rob Heskett. Pete Capielli gave me my first drum lesson, but Rob was like this guy that he owned a little music store in downtown Littleton, Colorado called Crescendo Music, and he really started me out on the rudiments and playing traditional grip and everything. And I think the thing I rebelled against the most was traditional grip. I wanted to play like Ronnie Tutt, or I wanted to play like Ringo Starr or Peter Criss, the guys of that era. They played match grip. So I rebelled against that, and learning how to play the rudiments to me were just. And this is what I've fast forward all these years when I teach. The way that Rob told me, he goes, when you're learning the rudiments, you're learning the nuts and bolts of drumming. You're learning the vocabulary of drumming. It's kind of like if you were playing, if you're playing guitar, you're going to learn how to play scales. If you're playing piano, you're going to learn how to play scales. And the way I looked at the rudiments was that, okay, these are kind of like the scales to playing guitar, playing drums. And I wanted to learn them because if you're playing scales, you don't want to just play in one mode. You want to know as many modes as you can so that you can be a well-rounded musician and not just like a stay in one place. You can go different places with them. And that's kind of the way I looked at the rudiments. So, and I don't think anybody likes, sitting there with a practice pad playing Ratomy cues. But, at the end of the day, when you sit behind your drums and you know how to make a Ratomy cue work within the context of a fill idea or a solo idea or a groove idea, it kind of makes the drums come to life. So I didn't really rebel against the rudiments, more against the traditional grip thing.
Yeah, that totally makes more sense. Now, I might be jumping ahead. Obviously,
That's cool.
You're an educator and a teacher. I know you published a couple of books. What was your first book, and how did the rudiments lead into that?
Well, what happened with the first book was this. My first book was a book called School of Hard Rocks, A Working Drummer's Guide to Real-World Drumming is the subtitle. The School of Hard Rocks is the main title of the book. And honestly, when I was writing the book, I didn't really mean to write a book. I always knew I had a book in me, but the fact of the matter was this. I was, at the time, I was studying with Ralph Humphrey, and I also had taken, I say I studied with Greg Bissonette. I got to take 3 lessons with him.
Oh, nice.
But at that time, I was also studying with Greg. So I was taking lessons with Greg, and I was really studying with Ralph. And for the people out there who don't know who Ralph is, Ralph and Joe Picaro kind of started the Musicians Institute, and then went on to find LAMA, Los Angeles Academy of Music and Art. And he is actually, I don't know if he still is, but when I was studying with him, I'm pretty sure he is. He was the drummer for Dancing with the Stars, and he played with Frank Zappa, and he played with Barbra Streisand. I'm pretty sure I'm correct on this too. At the beginning of the original Star Trek, that log drum, that on the original Star Trek thing, I think that's Ralph. And I got asked that question the other day. I should have looked that up for today's podcast. I'm pretty sure that's Ralph. Anyway, when I was studying with Ralph, he was giving me these exercises, these independence exercises that I could not play. I just couldn't do them. They were really difficult. And so I wrote a big section of my book as a way to, teach myself to play his exercises. So, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time?
Yeah.
So I started taking these little pieces of music that, okay, I can't play this, but I know I can do this. For instance, some of these subdivisions, there were 16th note subdivision with different accents throughout the subdivision. It might be on the quarter notes of 1 and 3, and then the 16th notes of the beat of 1 and 3. And you're holding a hi-hat quarter note against that, and then playing the bass drum underneath that, so you could put those on a crash cymbal. Okay. Well, I was struggling with that. So what I would do is I put together just a section of 16th notes where I had an accent on the beats, and then I'd put the kick drum underneath it and the hi-hat underneath it. Mm-hmm. And the hi-hat, with the pulse, and then the kick drum underneath the accent. And I just slowly started compiling all these exercises so that I could get through Ralph's stuff. And then I could get through Ralph's stuff. Well, I kept compiling stuff as the lessons went on with Ralph to get through his lessons. And pretty soon I kind of had a book. And I remember showing it to him, and he said, well, gosh, this is a whole book. And then I started showing it to some of my other drum teacher friends. And they're like, yeah, I think you got a book here. And so, okay. So I talked to a friend of mine who was a graphic artist, and he put some stuff together for it. And I shopped it to a couple of different publishers and got it picked up by Centerstream, and it's distributed on Hal Leonard. So that was how my first book came to be, which is, again, School of Hard Rocks.
And you have a total of 3, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And
I have 3 books and 3 DVDs. The second book is a book called Rock and Pop and Snare Drum, which is just a snare drum fundamental book. Uh-huh. And then I have a book called The Drummer's Survival Guide, and that is more of a kind of a fill-in-the-blank book. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're writing out a drum groove. Like if you write out a drum groove, and let's say it's an 8th note groove, you start with writing out the eighth notes on the hi-hat, right? So you write 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 in. And then you'll write the bass drum in, wherever it is, and then you'll write in the snare drum, where, the backbeat on 2 and 4 and draw in any ghost notes that are in there. Mm-hmm. Well, what the Drummer's Survival Guide is a series of manuscript with eighth notes either in 1 or 2 bar phrases, and then shuffled eighth note triplets in 1 and 2 bar phrases, 16th notes with a snare drum on 2 and 4, but without the hi-hat written on 2 and 4, so you can kind of draw that in if you're playing it just, like a right-hand 16th note, mm-hmm. as opposed to hand-to-hand. So you can do it either way, hand-to-hand or just right-hand 16th note. You can draw it either way. And then a traditional jazz ride pattern, ding, da-da-ding, da-da-ding, da-da-ding. And once again, everything's in 1 and 2 bar phrases. And on the shuffles, there's no eighth note rest written in, so you can draw in that eighth note rest in the center of the shuffle if you need to,
Yes.
Yeah. So those are the 3 books.
And those are all available through Hal Leonard, you said?
Yeah, they're all on Hal Leonard, and you can also get them on my website, which is bartrobley.com in the store.
Oh, nice.
And, you can just order them through there if you're interested in them.
Yeah.
And I have 3 DVDs that go along with those. I have a DVD that goes along with the first book, School of Hard Rocks, and that one I actually won a Telly Award for that back in 2009 with my producer on that, Trace Solberg. We won a Telly Award for that. And then 2 other DVDs. One was for, both of them were Centerstream Hal Leonard. One was called Drums ASAP, Rudimental Drumming. Mm-hmm. And then the other one was called Drums, and they had the names ASAP, the publisher did. Drums ASAP, Setup and Tuning. And that was a really cool one because they asked me to do it. My publisher did, and I was like, okay, yeah, sure. So I went to Gretsch, and they gave me a drum set to use to make this DVD with. Mm-hmm. And we put the drum set together and filmed it. That's the way we did it. And then Gretsch subsequently, for a number of years, used it in some of their entry-level kits, like the Blackhawk series and I think it was also in the Catalina series. So if you got the drum set, my DVD was in there showing you how to put the drum set together. So that was kind of cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's pretty fun. I want to touch base on it a little bit later, but I want to talk about the Sam Morrison band, and it's a great mm-hmm. band, by the way. Anyone needs to check it out. But how did that get go about, and how long you been with them now?
I've been in the band for 21 years. Wow. The band's been together for 25 years. Mm-hmm. And then there was a big change in it. It started out, Sam started the band as a country band. And about 5 years into it, he kind of wanted to get out of just doing country. And it was the country of the 90s, kind of like Garth Brooks and Travis Tritt and all those guys that were really popular. He was working clubs around town doing cover tunes, and he had originals as well. And he wanted to start writing originals, and he wanted to be more in the vein of like a Southern rock type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so, like the Allman Brothers and Lynyrd Skynyrd and stuff like that. Charlie Daniels Band was his biggest influence and is his biggest influence. And so I guess it was probably 1998, 99 in there where I met Sam. And I was in a heavy metal band. I was in metal bands before that. I was in a kind of when I first moved to California, this artsy metal band called Blue Max. And then went into just kind of like a straight ahead hard rock, heavy metal band called War Crime. And I was in that band, and when I met Sam, and he, was the very opposite end of that. He was, country. And I grew up listening to country, but I had never played it. My mom, I grew up around that. She was a huge Elvis and country fan. But, anyway, he asked me to sub on a couple of gigs for him, and I actually went in kind of very reluctant because I had never played that type of music before, and I was coming from a really heavy background. Mm-hmm. But he pulled me into a couple gigs, screaming and clawing. I was like, because honestly, I was just scared. I was like, I don't want to. I didn't care about the, obviously I wanted to make the audience happy. But when you come into a gig, you want to make the other musicians happy. As a drummer, I think any musician, you want to make the other musicians around you happy. And as a drummer, it's your kind of job to hold the band together and make the other guys shine. And I was pretty petrified of that. And anyway, I went in and did a couple of sub gigs with him, and it went well. And he was kind of looking for a full-time drummer. He had drummers coming and going, and I did not get the gig. A different guy got the gig, and he did some shows out there. Did a big show out in Arizona called Country Thunder, where he opened up. You remember that show?
Oh, they were doing it, but yeah, they still do it.
Yeah, and at the year that he did it, his heroes and the biggest band of that style of music is Leonard Skinner, and they headlined it. So he was the opening band that day of that show, but he got to open up to him and do that whole thing. I was not on that gig, and another guy who was John Shelley. He went out and did the gig, and a couple months later, Sam called me up and he said, "Hey, look, here's the deal. The drummer that was in the band left, and the guitar player left." And he goes, "I have a 2-week tour, is 2 or 3 weeks, I can't remember now, it's so long ago, of Europe coming up." And he goes, "If you want the gig, you can it's your gig."
Oh, nice.
And I was like, I'm in. And so I jumped into the band. I did one local gig, and next thing I know, I'm on a plane heading towards Germany. And we went over there and we played for the troops over in the Balkans when the war in Bosnia and Croatia and Kosovo was going on. And I've told the story a couple of times recently in podcasts, and also in videocasts. So if you've already heard this, I apologize. But when we were in Bosnia and Croatia and stuff like that, it was very much a war-torn country. It was trashed. It was really bad. It was not a good thing to see. Well, then when we got into Kosovo, it was that times 20. It was so bad. It was just horrible. And the war was still going on. We played a camp, I'm pretty sure it was Camp Bondsteel, and it was a NATO base. And so all the forces from around the world were on this base. You had the American forces, Russian, German, everybody was on this base. And there was a city down below the base, and you could still hear them down there firing and at each other, small arms fire. They're down there fighting. And it's crazy, man. And so I survived that. So I figured, well, what the heck? I'll stick around for another, 21 years.
That's a good introduction. That's right. Going through the trenches, literally. So.
Literally going through the trenches, man. Literally. And the funny thing was, when we got the only time I was scared, and maybe this was just being naive and a false sense of security, but when we went from Bosnia to Kosovo, we actually flew in. We actually flew from Macedonia into Kosovo on a Chinook, one of those helicopters with the 2 propellers on top. Mm-hmm. Okay, we flew in, had the band and all of our gear on there, and then they toured us around the country to all these different bases, and we played them. And when we were coming back after the last show, we were going back into Germany, or we were going back into Macedonia to fly to Germany to come home. And we did not get our passports, or when we were coming back, we couldn't fly back in on the Chinook because it was foggy that day. So they were just going to drive us back into the country on these little vans and that we were in. They were transporting us in. Well, when we went into the country, we never got our passports stamped because we flew in with the military. And that was the only time I was kind of frightened, because they were right there at the border. They were really serious about it. They were like, "How did you get into our country? Who are you?" And it was, there's guys with AK-47s, and we got our guys, the U.S. troops, they've got M16s. We're trying to explain it to them. The language barrier was not going well. And it was pretty frightening. And then the guy that was in the band at the time, that was a guitar player, he's going, "Just tell them we're in the band and let us go." And I'm like, "Dude, shut up!" It was definitely it was something to remember, But it was weird and scary, but it's a good memory.
Yeah, that's a one to keep you up a couple of days there, probably.
Oh man, yeah, right.
So, go ahead. Go ahead there.
Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to. I stepped on.
You there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. So, sorry. I was going to talk about your setup. Okay. Set up to the band. Do you usually play 1 up and 2 down?
Yeah. I play 1 up and 2 down. And actually, the reason that I, for the longest time, if you look at some of the older pictures, like I said, I'm endorsed by Gretsch. I have 2 beautiful kits that I love dearly. For the longest time, I used 2 up and 1 down, and I did my toms are not mounted to the bass drum. They're on a floor stand off to my left side of the bass drum, to the audience's right. Mm-hmm. And I did that because I'm tall, and I didn't like having the bass drum right in front of me. I felt cramped. And I also like my ride cymbal pretty close. I like my hi-hat, my snare, my ride right there in the front. Mm-hmm. And because we started flying so much and doing so many backline gigs, a lot of times they won't, you'll get a kit where the toms are mounted on the kick drum, and then my ride cymbal's way over to the right. So I would just go with 1 tom up top, and then 1 floor tom or 2 floor toms, whatever they provided for me. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while I get the 2 toms up top on a stand, but it is pretty rare. It's usually mounted on the kick drum. And so I don't care how good you are, when you change your setup, like, right now, and even if you had a good sound check, the first couple of songs, it takes a few minutes to get your feet underneath you. Mm-hmm. If you're used to having 2 up top. So I just decided at one point, I was like, you know what? I'm really comfortable playing, 1 up. And so I'm just going to make that my main setup, so that when I do go, so I'm always comfortable with it. So when I do go and play a backline kit, I don't have the whole thing of having, that first couple of songs getting used to the kit thing.
Yeah.
If I got to get used to the feel of the heads, because I'm an Aquarian artist, but if they've got, another head on there, the feel's going to be a little bit different. No big deal. I can tune the drums up and get my feel out of them and stuff. And every once in a while you get a drum that's a dog, but most of the time, the drums that they provide you are good. And you have to get used to the heads, like I say. But if I'm used to the setup, then I just play better. So that's why I switched over to 1 up, 2 down.
And then, as you mentioned, you use Gretsch drums. What series are you using?
You know what? I play the Renown series. Oh, nice. And yeah. So like I don't have a USA custom. I would love to have a USA kit, but I don't. And I play the Renowns because in my mind they're the best sounding kits that there are.
They have that heavy die-cast hoop on them.
Yeah, they got the real heavy die-cast hoop. And the 2 kits that I play, the main kit that I tour with right now is a maple kit. I have a walnut kit that I've since retired. I still have the kit, but I don't take it out on the road anymore because they only made 50 of these kits. And when Steve Ferroni was with Pearl Drums forever. I mean, he was with Pearl Drums forever. And the year that Gretsch came out with what they call the Purewood series. The story is that he came into the Gretsch booth, Steve Ferroni did, and he sat down behind the walnut kit and he played it. And he said, this is the way every drum kit should sound. And so he switched from Pearl to Gretsch because of that kit.
Nice.
Anyway, I have one of those walnut kits, and I was coming home from a gig one night, and the bass drum was, inside of a case, and I had it on another case, on a flight case, and I was pushing it into my studio here, and the case slid off and hit the ground. And just by the way the case hit the ground, I was like, I know something happened. And I pulled the drum out, and the hoop on the bass drum had broken. And it broke my heart, So that next year I saw Paul Cooper, who's the drum master for Gretsch at NAMM, and I was like, Paul, this is what happened. I go, do you have any of those? Do you have any, walnut hoops? And he goes, man, I don't, but I have a set of really nice maple ones. And he goes, I'll clean them up and polish them up and put a nice clear coat on them, and I'll send them to you, and they'll accent that drum really nice. And they do. It looks great. The bass drum looks like $1 million, but if something were to happen to that kit, since they only made 50 of that particular kit, I would just be like, no, I'd be heartbroken. So I tour with the maple kit, and everything's pretty hot rodded. I'm endorsed by the Kelly Shoe, and I'm endorsed by Audix. So all of my drums, with of course the exception of the snare drum, but all of my drums are internally mic'd, so you can sound guy just walk up and plug into them. And even my snare drum mic is the microphone is mounted on the snare stand. It swings up over the top of the snare drum, and I have my own mic on there. So sound guys love me because they don't have to put up mics. They just walk in and plug in the drum set.
And I was going to ask,
they got to run their cables to the snake, and that's it.
I was going to ask for that Gretsch Renown kit. I know you're an Aquarian guy, but are you running a 1-ply or a 2-ply head on the toms?
Single ply. I play classic clears on the top and the bottom.
Nice.
And I have the classic clear with the dot on the top. And I like to tune my drums a little bit higher than most rock guys. Most rock guys, you get a real bottom end low boom out of the drum. And I kind of pull my drums up a little bit tighter. I've found over the years that every drum kind of, you probably agree with this. It doesn't matter what drum or what head you have on it. Every drum has its, for the lack of a better term, its happy place where it just sounds right,
Yeah.
And so I kind of find that happy place on all of the drums, and I tune them up a little bit tighter. I like, if you really listen to some of the old Zeppelin records and you listen to, Bonham's tuning on those drums, he played big drums, 14 by 26 inch bass drum, a 14-inch top tom, 16 and 18-inch floor toms, but he pulled those things up pretty tight, and I'm pretty sure he used single ply coated heads on his drums. But they're tuned up pretty tight, and they really sing at you, and that's kind of the way I like my drums to sound. So
nice.
That's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, those Renowns have a natural high tone to them too, as well. I remember.
Yeah, they did
playing them, especially with the 10 and the 12 on those.
Totally, 100%. They really do. And on the bigger drum, and my floor toms are 14, 16. So I play 12, 14, 16. On the toms, and kind of a trick that I do on the floor toms is, this was something I learned from my buddy Ted Morton. He told me this story, and I tried it out, and it worked great. I take the top head off, and just take a handful of cotton balls and drop them in the drum.
Oh yeah.
Have you heard of that?
Yeah, I've tried it. It works.
No, it works great, man. I'd never heard of that before. And I threw a handful of cotton balls in the floor tom, and the drum just talks to you, but the overtones, just that last little resonant, is like, boom, it just dies out just a little bit faster,
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that is awesome. That is so great. So yeah, I've got cotton balls in my drums.
And then I know you're a Sabian endorser as well, correct?
Yes.
What kind of Sabians are you using currently?
So on my ride, I use a I like a bigger ride cymbal, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an HH Raw Bell 21-inch ride, and then I use Explosion. Or I have one AAX Explosion Crash, and then everything else is the Evolution series, the Dave Weckl Evolution series. I think that those are amazing cymbals.
Yeah, they sound great in any conditions.
Yeah. Oh my God, man! Yeah, they're phenomenal. And then I have a 15-inch set of groove hats that I play, and I don't use the Evolution hi hats. I use the groove hats, and they're 15-inch, and they're really warm sounding.
Yeah.
And then I've got a set of, believe it or not, I got a set of Sabian rock hi-hats that, man, they just sound great for session work, and I'm doing all my own recording here for everything here at the house now. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while I'll have to, depending on the session, I'll have to change out the hi-hats because they're a little bit bright. But most of the time, man, those hi-hats just, they just sound really good. They've got a nice crisp sound to them, and a nice click to them. You know, if you're just listening to your foot playing on 2 and 4 or a quarter note or something, it just got a nice click to it. You know, so I use those a lot for recording. The 14-inch rock hi-hats, just kind of a generic AA rock hi-hat. They sound great, man. They're great sounding.
Yeah, Sabian's a great product as well.
Oh yeah, Sabian is phenomenal. Being part of the Sabian family and having the endorsements that I do, I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful for the companies that support what I do. It's great being part of those companies.
And then one thing I wanted to push before we let you go is your lessons.
Yeah.
What's the best place to reach out to you? What's the best place to check it out? And your YouTube as well.
Yeah, you can just put my name into YouTube, Bart Robley, and go to my channel there. The best way to reach out to me for lessons is at my website, bartrobley.com. And I do lessons in person. Right now with the COVID thing, I'm not doing a whole lot of in-person lessons, and we said this before the podcast, we keep our opinions to ourselves. I have, like everybody else, I have my opinions on COVID, and I'm really trying to err on the side of caution with anything because I've known people that got it. I've known some people that got really sick. Unfortunately, my neighbor across the street, we just lost her to COVID. It's a bad thing.
Sorry to hear that.
And, yeah, and she was such a sweet lady, and it's really sad. And so, anyway, I'm trying to err on the side of caution. So everything I'm doing right now is online via Zoom or Skype, but I do a lot of master classes on Zoom and Skype as well. Well, the master classes are done on Zoom. Skype's just the one-on-one, but it works great. I've got a 3-camera system. I'm going to add a 4th camera, probably this week, as a matter of fact, above me. So I have one off to my left for the hand cam, one in front of me, and one down by my feet.
Nice.
So you can really see what I do. And it's kind of funny because a lot of my students that would come to me in person, obviously before COVID, they do the online lessons now, and they're like, I think, even when this is over, I want to stay online because I can see your hands and your feet so close. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, whatever works for you works for me. That's cool with me, whatever you want to do. Uh-huh. So it's, that's kind of how I'm doing lessons there. And, reach out to me on my website and send me an email or a phone call or send up a smoke signal, and we can do it to it.
Now, obviously, live playing's on hiatus, too. Are you currently playing live or any time zones that you're kind of looking in the future to get back out again?
I've heard talk that there's some gigs coming in for next year in March. That kind of remains to be seen. I know that they're coming in, but whether or not they'll happen, because we had gigs for this year. The whole year just was wiped out.
Yeah.
In March, we had a bunch of stuff on the books. We had just got in January. We had done. We played down in Florida. We played. The last run we did was out in Laughlin. and 5 nights out there, and just got wiped out. So yeah, nothing right now, but hopefully, things come back in March. That's what we're hoping for.
Nice.
But until then, I've got, like I said, I'm doing a lot of lessons. Started a new thing I want to plug real quick called the Drummers Education Network.
Oh yeah, I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, Chip.
Yeah,
that's how.
Chip's amazing, by the way.
Oh, dude, Chip is such a great dude.
Yeah,
and he's just, man, that guy will keep you in stitches, man. That guy is funny as hell. But it's Chip reached out to me back in, I guess it was like June, I think. I was out on a hike and he called me up and he's like, man, I got an idea I want to run past you. Let's do this Zoom thing with Rick Stojak. I was like, okay, cool. So, whatever. So we got onto a Zoom call and started talking and spitballing ideas, and then Rick brought in Jeremy Steinkohler. And so we started this thing, the Drummers Education Network, and what it's for is for drum teachers to kind of throw their ideas out there, and their ideas on everything, whether it be from, how to build your drum teaching business, how to teach, what to teach, how to build a curriculum, how to deal with COVID. We had Alex Cohen on. You know who he is?
That sounds familiar, to be honest with you.
He's out of the East Coast. He's out of New York, and he's one of these extreme metal guys. And my God, this guy has the most incredible independence and the most incredible chops and one of the coolest dudes in the world. And we had a great interview with him. You can check that out on YouTube. We've been archiving things on YouTube. Drummers Education Network. We've got 4 videos up there right now. The 5th one will be coming up here real soon. Every time we do an interview with somebody or anytime we have a Zoom meeting, it's on a subject matter of teaching drums.
Nice.
We all throw in our ideas, and then we archive them on YouTube. And matter of fact, Jeremy and I just did a test last night for some live streaming. It looks like our next week's video that we would normally record and then upload is going to be a live stream. We've got the bugs worked out there, so we're excited about that. So if you're a drum teacher and you're listening to this and you want to get involved, it is a private group on Facebook, but just send us an invite to the Drummers Education Network and we'll let you in. And so many great resources for drum teachers, amazing resources for drum teachers. So that's a really cool thing. So anyway, since COVID, Chip was the one that got the whole thing rolling, but we started that. I'm doing a lot of recording here right now out of the studio. This is, like I said, the 20th year of 25th year of the band, but the 20th year of the Sam Morrison Band, kind of making the turn from country more to like a southern rock type of thing,
Uh-huh.
So we're working on 2 albums right now. One, I told Sam I wouldn't spill the beans on it, but it's kind of a some older stuff that we're doing. And then we got another new album. We're in the middle of working on that. We've got to cut some tracks for that today and tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And then on my website, I have a new thing that I'm starting. I just filmed the first video for it last night, and I'm editing it today, and I've got 4 more in the works that I'm going to film hopefully tomorrow and Saturday. And I'm going to have little download videos on my website for 99 cents. I'm just calling it a 2-minute drum lesson with Bart Robley.
Nice.
And you download the video for 99 cents, and the subject matters are going to be everything. The first one I did was on the single stroke 4 and how to play it around the kit, how to play a bucket of fish fill for somebody just starting out and how to do this stuff. And then I had a video up years ago on YouTube on me and one of my students, Ryan, playing Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And this kid knocked it out of the park. And so the next video series I'm going to do is like how to play that song. It's going to be a 4-part video section on how to play Don't Stop Believing, and it'll be 99 cents. So those will be up on my site here. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks that'll be up and going.
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many people get that bell pattern wrong.
Oh, dude, I know.
When I go watch, I'm not going to ever bash on anybody, but when I go to like some, a bar or a restaurant, I'd see them playing. I'm like, Is he going to do it? And, oh, he didn't do it.
I know. And you know what? It's kind of like, okay, I remember when, and again, I'm totally dating myself. I remember when I first heard that song, right? When I was a kid, I bought that record. I bought the Escape record, and I was like, that was what stood out to me being a drummer. Is like, oh, listen to that bell of the ride cymbal. And I was like everybody else, like, how the heck did he do that? And I was a kid. I was like, I didn't think about open-handed drumming. What the heck is that?
Yeah.
And I'm like playing my left hand under the thing and trying to hit the bell. It was a wreck. So years later, one of my friends had the chart to it. I still couldn't. I'm like, what time? Well, you got to play it open-handed. And I was like, oh. So I love playing that part. And that's one of those tunes that it's kind of like when you do a Beatles tune, right? If you play a Beatles song, I don't care what song it is, and you don't butter the bread, every drummer is going to come up to you and go, dude, you didn't butter the bread.
Yeah.
You got to butter the bread when you play a Beatles tune. When you play Don't Stop Believing, play the part, man. Get up there and get those bells in there, man. That's the whole thing.
You got to keep in mind YouTube wasn't around, so it was a mystery. So now you can literally just YouTube it, and it's like, oh, okay, I got it.
Yeah, and you know what? You are so right, man. I remember when I was a kid, it was so frustrating to learn how to play songs because, first of all, there was no internet. Nowadays you can find a chart or a transcription for any song. Back then, you were lucky if you could find the music, and if you did find it, you were lucky if it was right.
Yeah.
The charts would be all screwed up, and then then you'd buy. In my case, I had just an old school record player, an LP player, man. And man, just backing the needle up, and I must have worn out 300 copies of Back in Black. I mean, my God, learning that record.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why I'm going deaf is because I used to have to put my head up to the Kenwood speaker to hear the hi-hat patterns, and I'm like, I think I hear the hi-hat. Oh no, that's a ride.
Yeah,
and
I know.
Oh man, yeah, that's probably why I can't hear in my right ear. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, I know the feeling, man. I'm as deaf as a doorknob. So now, I got a question for you. Okay, I got a question for you. Here it comes. So, where did you come up with the name, Dustin? The Hairy Man Show. I got to know.
Well, originally I wanted to call it the Dustin Drum Show, and I was like, that's not really funny at all. There's no humility in that, and so I looked down. I'm like, yeah, I'm a pretty hairy guy. So, and I thought, what's simple and what are people going to do? So,
okay. Go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I always like the simple band names or just simple, just something that sticks, and it seems like everyone's liking it, And,
well, I love it. As the Hairy Man Show, I'm pretty damn furry myself.
Yeah.
So I got to tell you this story because when I told Sam the other day, I told him I was going to be on a show called The Hairy Man Show. He reminded me of something, and I cracked up, and I was like, oh, I got to work this in. I've got to tell this to Dustin. Okay, so here's the scoop, right? So this was years ago. This was, like I said, Sam's considering this is the 20th year of the band, but this was probably 22 years ago, 23, something like that. It was the second tour I did overseas with Sam. We played in Korea. Mm-hmm. We played in Kunsan, Korea. We were playing on a F-16 fighter pilot base. We used to do a lot of military stuff, and we still do. You can watch on our YouTube. We had a song called "Peacekeepers" that we wrote after the European tour, and we have a song called "I Will Always Stand" that just came out a couple of years ago. Anyway, that's a side note. We were in Korea, right, and we're doing these shows, and we did an outdoor gig in the afternoon, and then we did a club gig like the next night. And we get done with the gig, and the guitar player, guy's name was Jeff Hubert, and Jeff was awesome, great guitar player. And you remember that show with Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade?
Yeah.
Okay. And you remember, I like French fried taters. Remember how he talked?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, dude, that's how Jeff Huber talked, and he didn't mean to. He wasn't imitating him. That's how the dude talked, man.
Yeah.
You know, man, that was a good drum part. Way to go, buddy. That's what he talked like, right?
Yeah.
So we get done with the gig, and he splits. He's gone, man, and just, you know, I was playing a backline kit, of course. I didn't have a whole lot of work to do, but I had to grab a few of my things that, you know, my cowbells and some cymbals that I took with me. I'm walking out, and the place is empty, and there's Jeff's guitars, right? He just left them. And I'm like, well, I can't leave Jeff's guitars, you know, that's not cool. So I pack up his guitars, put them in the cases, and I take them back to my room with me. Cause I mean, some time has gone by. It's been, you know, an hour since the show. Place is cleared out. He's not coming back. They're going to lock it up. So like, I'll take the guy's guitars and give them to him in the morning.
Uh-huh. So
he comes back. His guitars aren't there. I'm gone. He starts freaking out. You know, he's calling everybody. You know, where's my guitars? Well, Bart got them for you. They're in his room. So okay. Bart's got his guitar, so he calls my room. It's like 3 a.m, you know, and hello? And he goes, hey, Bart, I heard you got my guitars. I said, yeah, I got them. He goes, well, thanks so much. I'm going to come over and get them. I'm like, well, dude, just get them in the morning. You know, I'm sleepy. No, I got to get them now. All right, whatever. Guy coming over to my room, and he knocks on the door, and I get out of bed, and I just got on a pair of shorts, you know.
Uh-huh.
So I go walk up, open the door, and he just stands there, and he looks at me, and I don't have a shirt on. He goes, man, you're about a hairy son of a bitch, aren't you? Dude, I had totally forgotten that, but we laughed about that so hard because I told Sam that. You know, we laughed about that at the time. I forgot about it when I told Sam, like, oh yeah, I'm doing this podcast called The Harry Man Show. He reminded me of that, and I was like, oh, I got to tell that story to Dustin. I've got to tell that story. So there you go. There's my Harry Man story. So I think it was kismet that I was on this show. So there you go.
Yeah, I got a funny story about Chip about that too. I might tell you a little off air, but it was pretty funny. But,
what is it?
Well, basically, I was talking to Chip and I was asking for recommendations about the show. And he's like, hey, you might want to start putting pictures of the drummer on your promo cards because it sounds like the show is just about Harry Man. And I'm like, oh. So I started making sure I included pictures. As simple as it sounds, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think you got a point there, Chip.
Right.
Yeah, no, and it's a simple promo tactic. I just was like, oh, he's totally right.
Well, imagine. Okay, so think about it this way. Imagine all the poor guys out there that are just covered in hair from head to toe,
yeah.
And they're thinking you're going to either give them grooming ideas or shaving ideas, right? You know, it's one of two things. You know, this guy's either going to talk about how to groom this stuff or how to get it off my body, and we're talking about ratabacues and paradiddles. Imagine how disappointed those poor guys are.
Well, it's going to help those. It's going to help those YouTube analytics.
There you go. Right, exactly. Hey, you know what? You know what you need to do, man. You got to think outside of the box. It's called The Harry Man Show. You need to get an endorsement deal with Gretsch Drums and Gillette. You know?
Yes. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Yeah, right? Oh, man, that's good stuff.
Yeah,
man.
well, Bart,
stuff.
it was a good pleasure. I probably could have talked to you for another 3-4 hours, but I know you got some lessons today. Thank you so much.
Oh, man, no problem. Dustin, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And hey, listen, if you ever need me for anything, help's a phone call away, man. Just let me know. I'm more than happy to help out in any way. Like I said, I know that we're talking about guests for the next few episodes, the next few months, actually, I should say, of Drummers Education Network. So we'll definitely be reaching out to you.
Yeah, and I'd like to have you on again because I know I could have picked your brain for another couple hours there. So
you let me know, man. Anytime, I would love to be on. That would be great.
All right. Well, you guys thanks for enjoying the show, and please share with your friends. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and YouTube as well.
There you go.
Thank you, Bart.
Awesome. Hey, Dustin, thank you. And to anybody that listened to this and enjoyed it, thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to listen to me talk about drums and hair.
All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.